In the long hours before dawn, most of the city sleeps. The only movement is amongst those troubled by the heavy heat of the summer night. And the day laborers chasing rumors of work. Across a dry riverbed from the city is the railway station. Moving amongst sleeping families are porters that never seem to rest. There's the odd passenger hoping to join the last leg into Chennai, waiting the arrival of the first train from northern India. And then there's the lights, the grind of steel wheels on rail, and a chain of 30 carriages. A few passengers arrive for business, but most have come for the hospital. Vellore is known the world over for CMC, the Christian Medical College. Each patient brings their own story. Some are desperately sick and have been traveling for days. Some are following the referrals of doctors. Others are old hands returning for checkups, but most arrive unannounced. The one thing all patients share is the belief that CMC is the home of a healing God. It's just before dawn as Tarun George, a final year medical student, leads a group of his colleagues to the top of the hill next to the college campus.
Faith does play a very important role in our medical career. To be able to have a surrounding like this and a support system which is present, the students and the faculty, the spiritual meetings that we have, really helps us keep focused.
After living on the campus for 5 years, Tarun can think of no better place to share prayers for the day.
This is the way I wanted to grow as a doctor.
Founded as a single-room hospital in 1900 by the medical missionary Ida Scudder, the Christian Medical College continues to grow, with the main hospital in the centre of Vellore and a number of campuses and clinics around the city, as well as other facilities throughout India. After a quick breakfast, the student nurses always start their day in the chapel at the main hospital.
When I was small, I was very sick and the doctors lost all hope on me. My parents fasted and prayed for me and they dedicated me to God. So it's been my desire that I go and work for God who gave me life. I'm in my final year, so my dream's going to come true. I'm going to become a nurse in CMC.
When I wake up in the morning, I spend a little time in prayer and then I'm so excited about all the opportunity. Every day brings new challenges. In a place like this, there's just so much happening and there's so much to look forward to. It's important to have my ear to the ground, to know what exactly is happening.
Father God, we pray that you'd be with us today as we set out to work in our classes, in our teaching, in our...
And in all this, how do we keep the quality, keeping right at the focus that Jesus Christ is the center of all that we do.
In another part of Vellore, an equally important member of the CMC family is also getting ready for the day. Like his father before him, Ravindran is a sweeper at the main hospital, which means that he is part of the team responsible for the cleanliness of CMC's facilities. Ravindran is a man of strong faith, and he considers it an added blessing that he met his wife Mary, also a sweeper, at the hospital. Hospital employees have the opportunity to send their children to a CMC school. Ravindran and Mary have high hopes for the boys' futures.
We're off to hospital, but on the way we'd step over at the low-cost effective care unit, which is the iris cutter ward. Originally, the concept was that the poor should be right at the heart of our hospital. And in order to do that, we created a ward where the people from the slums, the poor people of Vellore town, can come and get effective treatment at a low or no cost whatsoever.
The work of the low-cost effective care unit is driven by a committed and caring team and led by a doctor of formidable passion.
How are you? Sarah Bhattacharjee, one of the very special people. We call her the Mother Teresa of CMC, of Vellore.
We've learnt many things working with poor people, that it's not enough to provide a free service. The service has to be something that poor people feel is theirs. We try to keep our facilities very basic. So, for example, we don't have mattresses on our beds. These people anyway sleep on the floor. But as doctors, we can't work on the floor. So we have our beds. We also find that if you have mattresses and sheets and the general ambience is a little more plush, then there's a whole group of people waiting in the wings to come in and use the facilities, especially because it's such a low cost, almost free facility. What I've learned about poor people is that if somebody else takes over and pushes their way in, they will just melt away. They don't raise their voice and they don't say this is my place or this is my right. They've actually grown up without many rights.
A man with all these skin lesions, shouldn't I be able to give him, first of all, high quality care, give him appropriate care, give him the basic comforts in life? But unless we're able to give appropriate medication, and medicines, as you know, is very expensive, we may never cure the person. This is where it's important for us to find adequate funding to get the medications to look after them.
With his day well underway, Ravindran finds moments for prayer, assured of God's presence in CMC. In little over 20 years, CMC's hematology department has developed into a world leader in research and excellence.
Today we have a bone marrow harvest for a kid called Saurabh, and he has thalassemia. He's transfusion dependent and needs to get blood every month and iron removed from his body for the rest of his life. Fortunately for Saurabh, his brother is fully matching, and we are going to be taking in his brother today and harvest enough of stem cells to do a transplant. And if the transplant is successful, Saurabh won't need transfusions anymore. In fact, after a year, he'll be off all immunosuppression and he can go to school and live a normal life. So that's the marrow which is starting to come up into the syringe. And you can see it looks just like blood. Earlier, when you do the first aspirate, you have a little apprehension. By chance, this person has a problem and I'm not going to get marrow, then what will I do? Because I've already destroyed the recipient's marrow. And therefore, if I don't put in a graft, the recipient is not going to survive. Occasionally, I have a parent saying, after transplant, he's become as naughty as the donor. So you say, hey, no, nothing could have happened to him other than his blood after the transplant. As you know, a transplant in the United States costs about $250,000. And that's really way beyond anybody's means in India. Whereas an average transplant at our center will cost about $15,000 US. Additionally, we are transplanting patients from foreign countries at a package deal of $50,000. I may, in fact, make a profit of about $30,000. And that $30,000 is going into a bone marrow transplant patient assistance fund, which will subsidize the cost of a patient in India who hasn't made. In fact, that would be the only ethical reason for us to transplant patients from abroad, so that we generate resources for people who cannot afford.
The morning is also the time for CMC to reach out to the communities surrounding Vellore. A new challenge is to provide palliative care for the patients and families of the very poor.
We're going on a home visit to see Venkateshan. Venkateshan is a 25-year-old man with advanced cancer who lives with his father and his two younger sisters. The stress of the illness actually caused his mother to commit suicide. So the family are really struggling. To top it all, last week they learned that their younger sister had failed her school leaving exams. So it really is a distressing situation.
From the Department of Community Health and Development, Chad, a mobile clinic is heading out into the surrounding countryside with doctors, nurses, and community health aides. Arriving at Venkateshan's home, the palliative care team focused their support for the young man and his family on the medical, the practical, and the spiritual.
His pain is better. The father used to be weeping all the time. He's a little calmer now. But what worries me is that the patient said that occasionally when he gets severe pain, he feels like committing suicide. Since it's the acute pain episodes that are unbearable, we have taught his caregivers, that's his sister and his aunt, to give pain injections at home. We've tried to help his physical pain. We've tried to hear some of the sorrow that they're going through. We hope that in some way we can provide them a little more financial security. And sometimes what patients tell us is that, we are the really poor of society. Nobody cares much about us. So when you all come all the way from CMC to help us, it just means so much to us because nobody has ever done that before.
Unlike the palliative care visit, the arrival of the Chad Mobile Clinic in a village is an eagerly awaited event. While the nurses set up the mothers and babies clinic, the doctors examine older patients.
She's a very elderly lady and she's poor. She doesn't really have anyone to bring her all the way to CMC. This area is quite far from Chad and she can't come on her own. So even if I refer her to CMC, even if she needs investigations, she's not willing to come there. So unless somebody comes here and sees her here, she's never going to get treated. She's very pale, as you can see. Amma naak neete. She's basically anemic, and so she's having problems because of that. She won't come there, so we have to come to her to give her medicines.
Wherever possible, the mobile clinic integrates educational programs to engage communities with health issues. The result has been a dramatic improvement in the overall health of villages. By mid-morning, the main hospital is in full swing. Doctors in cardiology are halfway through the 8 procedures slated for the morning. The new MRI facility is in constant demand. And in the outpatients clinics, inoculations are evoking the same response from children the world over.
Whole family, everybody came over. There are 3 important things regarding training. One is identifying the right people with the right aptitude. So this whole selection process is important. The second is once they are selected, try and ensure that they are nurtured, mentored, they are part of the community. They all live on the campus and therefore they develop into good doctors.
Interesting system of the faculty and student relationships. One of them is the way the faculty and the staff mentor us. It's not just the clinics in hospital where they come and take the rounds with the patient or where you spend time with the in the OPDs with them. It helps to build that kind of trust to guide us in times of difficulty as far as studies, at the same time friendships, any doubts in my mind, a lot of spiritual aspects.
There is always this challenge to sacrifice, willingness to give of yourself rather than just become big doctors. You are here being trained specifically because there's a huge need in the nation. You receive so much from here, ensure that you give it back to the nation. So this is constantly emphasized. So this spirit of sacrifice, spirit of service is always emphasized along with being of the best quality.
CMC has been my dream place. I always wanted to be in CMC because I've heard about it and I knew its history.
Once you go through CMC, you come out, people look at you like, CMC graduate. So you have that, I think it's the special college.
In the Nurses' College, morning lectures for the first-year students are underway.
When you gave the injection and when you received the injection. Can I ask Jonita to tell me what her experience has been?
For senior students, hands-on training in the hospital's maternity wards is a reminder of CMC's founder, Ida Scudder's vision for the hospital as a maternity training centre.
A nurse who is in charge comes along with the students as well as the staff. We discuss about each patient near the bedside. After the whole thing is over, then they assign patients for us. Whenever we have doubt, we go and approach the senior staffs.
I like being with the patients and I feel when we treat them as human beings, the time when they are in distress, they find it really good because there are times when they feel they're not honored, they're not given the right place in the society, and we treat them as precious when we call them with respect, when we approach them with love. It's nice. They feel good and we feel good.
Like the medical students, CMC nurses are mentored and encouraged towards a future vocation of service and excellence. Once a month, a community nurse from Chad joins with a local health aide to visit the sick and needy in each village under her care.
Because she lives in the village, she knows more about the village. Like she knows each and every family, how many people are living there. She knows each and everything in the village. And when I comes for the clinic, she will inform me about that, and we both will plan together and we will make the visits.
The health aide brings an intimate knowledge of the villagers and ensures that CMC effectively services the needs of the rural poor who surround Vellore.
Here we have Sumitra. Sumitra is a mother who delivered 21 days back. I will be teaching them about the newborn care, like how they have to take care of this newborn baby and how she has to take care of herself during this time after her delivery. CMC is doing a lot of help to the people in the villages, like preventing their diseases and many times giving them a free treatment. And it's really satisfactory for her to work in the village.
As the temperature peaks in the middle of the day, the hospital slows down. The clinics break for lunch, and those that can find a comfortable place to rest. Rest is the last thing the director has time for in his busy schedule. But like so many of CMC staff, Dr. George Chandy considers it essential to find time to visit the chapel during the day. With the intense heat of midday past, Vellore gets back to work. On the student campus, Tarun and some of his colleagues are finishing a lunchtime game before returning to their studies. In the main hospital, the afternoon's activities are getting underway.
Hello, ma'am.
And as always, the endless queues of patients needing help. A community outreach team from the Ida Scudder ward are visiting one of their volunteers in Vellore's Old Town slum district.
This is Mary Jevamani. She's a local volunteer with Ida Scudder ward. Mary is very definitely at the front line of changing the whole health scenario, the whole social kind of environment of this area. She understands these people much better than we do, and she's really a fantastic link between us and the people who live here. She is very involved with 30-40 people here in this area who have disabilities, and she helps with identifying them, she helps with rehabilitating them, basic occupational therapy, basic physiotherapy. And not only that, she helps with people with general problems also, and she helps to identify, refer them on to the hospital, and then receives them back and then helps with their follow-up. This is Govindamal. She's about 70 years old, and she lives in Old Town, about 100 meters away from Mary's house. She developed some neurological problems. She had loss of sensation, loss of motor power of her limbs, and she'd heard about Mary and the fact that Mary works with people with disabilities, and Mary actually examined her and identified that she did have a serious neurological problem. And Mary sent her on to the Ida Scudder ward. From there, she was sent on to the neurosurgeons in CMC hospital. And after certain tests and MRI scans, they identified the problem. She had a lesion in her cervical column, and they were able to fix it by doing an operation. So they've sent her back. She's here at home. She's probably 4 weeks post-op. She's continuing to do her exercises with Mary's help. And so that's one of our good stories.
This afternoon, Dr. George Chandy is scheduled to journey out into the countryside for a regular visit to RUSA, the Rural Unit for Health and Social Affairs.
We have helped develop this whole area through the RUSA project. This place is really the extension arm of our work, reaching out into this rural community, helping them develop socially, economically, get them to train, get them to work. Hi, John. Hi, Rita. Thank you.
So nice of you to come and spend time with us.
Thank you.
Since I have some work to do, will you please take Rita and...
Sure. So she'll take me around?
Yes, she's going to take you.
Good. Bye-bye.
We're going to visit one of our peripheral clinics, and we conduct this clinic once a week. We see about 80 to 100 patients, and the focus is mainly chronic diseases. We have a lot of patients with chronic diseases like rheumatic heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. So that's the focus.
Let me introduce our peripheral healthcare team. We have doctors, and the services, by and large, we give them free. And if they can donate small money, people say if they pay something, they feel better.
If India has to develop in the health area, The way to do it is to help them develop economically, socially, culturally, educationally. And over the last 30 years, we have found that this actually works. So give them a goat, give them a bullock, help them to work, for example, become tailors.
Over 1,000 homes in the Rusa block are now supplied with gas processed from fermented cattle waste.
So essentially free gas, free fertilizer from something that's readily available.
Weaving is a very traditional skill many of the people have. Rusa's role is identify people with the skill and help them to set up a unit.
Any of these things helps them to develop economically, and therefore the health also improves.
There are no maps that you can go and buy in India which have geographic references, which have coordinates. So we actually create maps. We start by using these receivers, handheld GPS receivers. We send people out on motorbikes, in four-wheelers. They basically drive down streets and this draws the street map there. It's brought back, got into the computer, then we clean up the data and we have our roads. Then we use the same things and send it through our field workers who actually go to people's homes. They stand in front of the doorway and take a point. And that point again comes back into the computer, and soon your map develops. You have roads, you have smaller streets, you have houses on both sides of the streets. Then what we do is we have a large data set. It's on the health status of the people. We merge that with this map on our computer. What we get to see is a table which is taken on a spatial reference. We get to see which individuals are sick where in this area that we serve. So for us, adding the coordinates to our health data puts us on a completely new plane. It brings out things which we have never seen before. We have this excellent example of how we use GIS to help sort out an outbreak of cholera. Here's a village, it's called Kanyambadi. There are 2 deep bore wells way out of the village, and from there water is channeled through pipes.
I am actually standing in the place where the water pipelines run just 1 foot under the ground. As you can see, there's a sewage just right next to it where the sewage is running. So the water flows this way, and the sewage, that is all the dirty water, runs this way. Okay, and as you can see here, there are places where people come and poo here.
When this outbreak started, we had this one case, one chap who came in from his work spot in the next closest town. He was ill, he had diarrhea. He came home because he was ill. That's the first case that occurred. And this guy, we later figured, went to that area to poo. What happened at the end of the first week? We had, this guy and one more case. This was actually an elderly lady who died because of the cholera. What happened the next week? Can you see, the following week, there was this huge cluster of cases which started popping up on both sides of the village. And the week after, more cases. By now, it's all over the village. The last week, oh, look at that. The whole village is involved. We had about 47 cases. Now, why did this happen? We had a bad situation here. We had sewage, we had people pooing, and we soon discovered there had been a problem with the water supply pipe somewhere here.
This is the spot where there was a break in the water pipeline when the outbreak of cholera occurred. If it rains heavily, then there are high chances of the sewage getting into the water supply. Then it could be a disaster for the villages who are living right out there.
The villages are likely to benefit a great deal by applying quicker and faster methods which come out of technology.
Inside here, we have Saurabh. Saurabh is the little boy who's receiving the marrow that we harvested this morning. and the marrow is going like a blood transfusion. The miracle of transplantation is that those cells will find their way to the bone marrow, almost like the way a letter goes to the person to whom it's intended to be sent. If all goes well, in 2 weeks, we should start seeing his brother's cells. That 2-week period from now is the critical period when he'll be virtually with no neutrophils in his blood. He's a sitting duck for any infection from his own intestine. But if all goes well, the graft comes in, he'll be out of here in 3 weeks' time.
India is changing considerably. The healthcare industry is growing at about 18% every year. Pharmaceutical industry at 26% every year, which means a whole lot of new hospitals are coming up. The corporate hospitals, multinationals are coming up, mainly in the big cities and the metros. These hospitals will attract the paying patients. The challenge is that if the paying patients do not come to CMC, we will not be able to raise funds to care for the poor and the needy. Therefore, we have to provide adequate facilities, we have to be excellent in all that we do, our quality should be excellent, so that despite the large numbers here and the hardships in terms of waiting times, patients who can pay will continue to come and find this as a haven for high quality, compassionate care. And the funds that we raise from that will go for the care of the poor and the needy.
CMC's work amongst India's poor and disadvantaged is supported by a much valued network of organizations around the world, the Friends of Vellore. If you would like to make a donation or become involved in this practical expression of Christian faith, please contact your local Friends of Vellore representative via the website. CMC is also always looking to develop relationships with medical professionals and institutions around the world. For further information regarding the Christian Medical College, visit their website or contact the Directorate by email.